Hey guys, we're back with the last and final video for 9.4. We are still working with rational expressions, but now we are adding or subtracting. Okay, remember that in order to add or subtract fractions, you do need a common denominator, and we're going to do that by finding the least common multiple. That's what LCM stands for, least common denominator or least common multiple. Okay, we're going to go through this a couple times with regular numbers before we move into polynomials. That way you have a good understanding of how we're getting these pieces. Okay, all right, so let's start with A. When it comes time to find a least common multiple for the numbers 5 and 10, here's what you have to think about. How would I find the number 5? The only factor of 5 is 1 and 5. We're never going to use 1. So I would say to make a least common denominator, I must include this 5. Okay? Now, anything that's already created in the first one, in the pink one, I don't have to repeat. So I don't have to repeat this 5. He's already in there. But I do need to put a 2 in to make it work for the 10. Therefore, my least common denominator is a 10. I have every number that needed to make the pink, and I put in any additional numbers that I need to make the blue. Least common denominator or least common multiple would be 10. Okay? Let's look at this one. So if I'm trying to find, and again, least common denominator, least common multiple are the same. So if I'm trying to make this one, I have 3 numbers this time. So I need everything that makes the pink. 7's the only thing. Anything additional that I need to make the blue, which is a 2 and a 3, because neither of those numbers are in the pink. And then anything additional that I need to make the green. So I already have 1, 3. I just need the other 3. So if I multiply that all together, 2 times 7 is 14. 14 times 9. Let's see what that's going to give us. Should be 126. Therefore, my least common multiple is 126. All right, let's do one more like that with just them numbers. Okay, so I wrote out for C, the numbers are a little bit bigger, so I wanted you to see where I'm getting that from. Least common multiple, least common denominator. All right, when you write out all the different factors needed to make a 27, I am going all the way down to the basics. So I need 3 3's to make a 27. If you wrote that as 9 times 3, that's fine, or 3 times 9, that's fine. You just have to remember you need any additional things to make the blue. So I already have the 36 factored out. I have 1 3 already in there. 1 3 already in there. So the only additional things I need are the 2's. So a 2 and another 2. All right, so if I multiply that all together, 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And 2 times 2 is 4, so 27 times 4 should give me 108. Therefore, my least common multiple or least common denominator would be 108. Okay? If you missed anything on A through C, you could copy it now. Let's go to D. So for D, first thing I did was write out what multiplies to make all those pieces. Least common multiple. To make the pink, I would need 4 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, or x to the 4th. Anything additional needed to make this one would be 2 x's. I already have 2 x's that are in here, so the only thing extra would be the x plus 1. If I put this all together, I end up with x to the 4th and then x plus 1. Let's go into E. So E, I factored out both of my pieces to make the pink one. I need an x plus 2 and an x plus 3. Those are my factors. So if I'm multiplying that out, I need x plus 2, x plus 3. Anything additional needed to make the blue? Well, I already have the blue inside here, right? X plus 3 is already part of the pink. Therefore, my least common multiple. You could leave it like this. Or you could say my least common multiple is back with what we started. I could FOIL that back together. Okay. All right, last one. For F, I have factored out the pink one. It's a difference of squares, x plus 3, x minus 3. For the blue, I have factored him out into x plus 3, x minus 8. Remember, factoring is super, super critical in this. So if I write these out, to make the pink, I need an x minus 3 and an x plus 3. Anything additional needed to make the blue? Well, I already have an x plus 3 in here. Only thing additional I need is the x minus 8. This would be my full least common multiple. You could FOIL it back together if you wanted, but you do not need to. Therefore, that's my least common multiple, okay? All right, if you missed anything on the top, A through F, you could pause it and write it down now. We're gonna go down to the bottom, A and B. We're gonna actually start using these in fractions, okay? All right, let's talk about A. So for A, on these two problems, or these two fractions, I already have the same denominator. So the rule when adding fractions is if the denominator is the same, you just add or subtract the numerator, which is the top, and keep the bottom the same. So 2 out of 3x plus 5 out of 3x. All I'm going to do is add those two top numbers, making it 7. So 7 out of 3x. And this right here would be my answer. I don't have to change anything. They already have a common denominator. If you need to pause and write that down, do so now. We're going to B. Now, when it comes to B, I have two different denominators. We have to make them have the same denominator, least common denominator. So what I like to do is write out up here, and let me kind of erase it and I'll show you where I'm getting it from. I like to write out what are all the pieces of the first denominator. So of the pink one, I need a 2 and an x. Then I can say, all right, for the blue, I already have the x that's in there. The only additional piece that I need is the 5. Therefore, my least common denominator, if I put all that together, would make 10x. So I'm trying to turn both of these into 10x. Well, remember that whatever you do to the top or the bottom, you have to do the same. So if I'm trying to multiply the pink one to turn into 10x, I have to make sure that I multiply the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. Okay? If I want to change the blue, the second fraction, into 10x, I have to multiply the bottom by 2 and the top by 2. Okay? So what that does is on the left side, I end up with 5 times 1 is 5. On the right-hand side, I end up with 4 times 2 is 8. Now that they have the same common denominator, I can put them together. 5 minus 8 gives me a negative 3 over 10x. Okay, and there's nothing I can simplify in that part. If it was like 2 out of 10x, then I would want to reduce my fraction. But in this case, that is already simplified. Okay, so notice that whatever the pink has, that the blue doesn't have, that's what I multiplied by to level it out. Whatever the blue had that the pink needed, I multiplied that over here to get it to what I wanted to be. All right. If you need to pause for A and B, do that now. We're going down to the bottom. All right. We're starting to get a little spicy now that these are actual polynomials, or in this case, binomials. So I want to go really slow. I highlighted the first fraction's denominator and the second fraction's denominator, two separate colors. There is nothing that I can factor for x plus 2. It's already done. There is nothing that I can factor for x plus 5. It's already done. So when I'm trying to come up with my least common denominator, to make the pink, I need an x plus 2. To make the blue, anything additional would be the x plus 5. They have nothing in common, which means that in order to get that least common denominator, I'm going to have to make sure that I multiply the top one and the bottom one. So let's do that now. If I multiply this top one by the x plus 5 he's missing, and this bottom one by the x plus 5 he's missing, I can get him to what I need. Let me write that out. So he has an x plus 2 and an x plus 5 on the bottom. On the top, when I put that part together, think about it like distributing here. X squared plus 5x. Okay? Now we're going to do the same thing on the right-hand side. So what does the blue have? And what does he need for the pink to make it match? he needs to multiply by the x plus 2. Whatever I multiply on the bottom, I need to multiply the same thing on the top. So when I do that on the bottom, now I have an x plus 5 and an x plus 2, which is exactly what I wanted. And on the top, when I multiply that together, think about distributing it, I end up with a 3x plus 6. Okay, all right. Now that I have the same denominator, I'm going to put all of that together. So you don't have to FOIL it back together. You can if you want to. You could say it's x squared plus 7x plus 10, or you could leave it x plus 2, x plus 5. But I do need to add up all my like terms on the top, okay? All right, so it looks like to start, I'm gonna change colors real quick here. I have an x squared. If I put all of my x's together, I have 5x plus 3x. That gives me 8x. And then I have a plain 6 over here at the end. This right here is my final answer. If you need to pause that, copy it down, go ahead and do that now. Otherwise, we are moving to our last problem on this page. All right, when it comes time for D, I do have a little bit of factoring that needs to be resolved here. So if I'm going to factor first, let's figure out what's inside of this pink. If I'm going to factor x squared minus 6x plus 9, that means I need an x minus 3 and another x minus 3. If I look to factor the blue, he is already done. So let's go ahead and look at what our least common denominator is going to be. Oops, I'm going to move that over just a little bit. All right, so least common denominator, everything that I need to make the pink is x minus 3, x minus 3. Anything additional I need to make the blue, well, I only need one x minus 3, and he's already in there. So I don't need anything extra to make him, okay? All right, my least common denominator is x minus 3, x minus 3. So let's move that down here into the bottom. Write out everything that I need here. X minus 3, x minus 3. X minus 3, x minus 3. All right, so if I ask you, what did the first one, the pink first fraction, is there anything blue that he needed to multiply to make the least common denominator? No. He started out with everything he needed, so I'm just going to copy him down, 3x plus 2. Now, for the second fraction, the blue one, is there anything that he needed to turn him into this denominator? Yes. He needs to multiply by another x minus 3. So I'm going to write that out. X minus 3. Up here, x minus 3. So technically, if I wanted to, I probably should have made this one blue so you know he was already there to begin with. Okay? All right. Now, to get that top part, we're going to have to FOIL it back together. So remember, FOIL is I distribute this first guy. That's x to the third. Distribute the second one, minus 3x squared. Distribute this guy, plus x squared. Distribute to the last one, minus 3x. Make this fraction just a little bit longer. Okay. All right. We now have a least common denominator all situated. We are ready to go ahead and combine our like terms. So let's do that. We're going all the way. I now have x minus 3 on the bottom. And I'm going to start grouping on the top. All right, so highest degree first. It's going to be an x to the third. I'm going to put all my squareds together. So I have a negative 3x plus x. That gives me negative 2x squared. I noticed that when I put my regular x's, negative 3 and a plus 3, they're going to cancel. And finally, I'm going to put my plus 2 at the end. All right, looking at this, I am now simplified. The only thing that is not simplified is I probably should have put this back together. So I'm going to write that one more time. X to the third minus 2x squared plus 2. And I'm just going to put it right back to what it started as. X squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay, this is my final answer. If you missed anything on this first page, go ahead and pause it now. We're going to go to the next page. There are 2 more problems for us to work out. Perfect. Go ahead and flip. And let's go to E. All right, E is a little bit complicated. That's why you have lots of space underneath this problem. I want to go real slow and make sure we include all of our pieces, okay? All right, when it comes to this, I need to make sure that I factor everybody first. So the pink guy is a difference of squares, 3x minus 1, 3x plus 1. The blue is already factored and the green is already factored. So when it comes time for a least common denominator, I'm going to write him over here, least common denominator. All the pieces I need, starting with pink. I need 3x minus 1 and a 3x plus 1. The blue is already included in that answer. And the green, I need an extra x. Okay? So now we have to figure out what's missing to create that answer, or to create that denominator. The first guy, so let me make him pink again. This first guy has all of the pink pieces. He's just missing the green piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to remind myself that I'm multiplying this guy by an x. And I'm multiplying his bottom by an x. Okay, he's missing the green piece. When it comes to the blue guy in the middle, so that's this guy, he is missing the 3x minus 1 and the x. So I have to multiply him by both. Here's what I do to make that happen. I like to put him in parentheses, multiply it on the outside here, so I'm going to have a 3x minus 1, and I'm also going to have one of the green x's out here, okay? I have to do the exact same thing on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply him, I'm going to stack it underneath because I don't really have room for that, so 3x minus 1, and I also am going to give him that extra x. All right, finally the green guy on the end. What is he missing? Well, he's missing all of the pink stuff. So if I need to multiply him out, I need to multiply him by a 3x minus 1 and also a 3x plus 1. I need to multiply on the bottom by the same thing, 3x minus 1 and a 3x plus 1. Try to keep this separate, okay? All right, there's a lot going on here. So let's see if we can go ahead and write this out as my 3 fractions. So I'm going to have an x, 3x minus 1, 3x plus 1. I'm going to have a separate fraction here. Same thing. I'm going to copy and paste that. And then I'm going to have it one more time over here. All right, we're going to go through these one at a time. So if I'm making the pink one, let me highlight that real quick. If I'm making this guy up here, think about distributing it. That's going to give me 2x squared plus 3x, okay? And that's coming from the first pink fraction. Then I'm going to do the blue. We're going to multiply all this together, okay? So if it helps you do it in kind of 2 waves, you can do that. So I might think about doing 8x times 3x is 24x, but I'm multiplying another x in with it as well. That gives me a third power. Okay, so again, if I was multiplying, I'd have 24x squared, and then with another x in here gets me to the third power. If I was distributing 8x minus 1, I'd have minus 8x. Distribute the x in here, gives me the extra, so minus 8x squared. Okay, finally we're going to do this green one on the end. So multiply this whole thing back together. It probably is easier to FOIL back the 2 parentheses, back to think about 9x. Let me write that again. Remember, he was like 9x squared minus 1. He came from the first guy. So if I distribute my 2 to that, then I can think about going 18x squared minus 2. All right, so now that we've made all of our fractions have a common denominator, now we're ready to start putting stuff together. All right, let's do that to start. I'm going to make one big fraction. I'm going to paste that same denominator that we had. Oops. paste the same guy, and then I'm going to go through one at a time and put all my pieces together. So, starting with my third power, he goes first. So 24x to the third. Then I'm going to put all my squareds together. So I have 18 minus 8 is 10, plus 2 is 12, so 12x squared. Put all my x's together. I only have one of those, so 3x. And then all of my no x's together. So that's the minus 2. All right, so this right here, you could use as a final answer. Remember, if you wanted to put this back together, we would have said this is the same as 9x squared minus 1, and then distribute an x back in. So I could do 9x to the third minus x, and then keep the same thing on top. I would take either answer. Sometimes it's easier to put it back together than others, but I would take this as a final answer, or I would take this as a final answer. Either one. Okay? All right, I'm going to zoom out. If you need to pause that one, copy it down. Go ahead and do that now. I'm going to shrink it just a little bit to keep it on this side, as we do have one more problem to get through. Okay? All right, last one. Let's hit F. All right, F is the subtraction problem. It's the first time you've seen the subtraction problem. So here is my suggestion. You can do it at the beginning, or you can do it at the end, but my suggestion is that you go ahead and get rid of that minus sign from the very start. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to distribute that negative to this top piece right here at the very beginning. So I'm going to write it as negative x minus 3. Basically, I'm distributing a negative 1 to both of these guys. So in order to do that, I can change it to a plus, and I can scribble this out so that I'm not worrying about it anymore. Okay? All right, let's start from the top. Factors that I need to make the first guy. So I'm going to go x minus 2 and an x minus 1. Factors for the blue guy. Looks like I just have a GCF. He is able to factor. So I'm going to take out the 3 and leave me with x minus 2. Now, they do already have the x minus 2 in common, right? So if I'm thinking about my least common denominator, I'm going to write him at the top. I'm going to need the x minus 2. Whoops. I'm going to need the x minus 2 and the x minus 1 that came from the first guy. The only thing extra I'm going to need to make the blue is that 3, and I'm even going to put him at the front. Okay? So to turn my least common denominator into that from the first function, or from the first fraction over here, the only thing I need to multiply by is a 3. So I'm going to wrap him in parentheses and put a 3. I'm going to also put that 3 on the bottom. For the second fraction, so this blue guy over here, only thing I need to multiply him by to get him to the least common denominator is the x minus 1. So I'm going to wrap this guy in parentheses again and multiply him by an x minus 1 on top and bottom. So let's go ahead and see what that's going to look like. All right, on the bottom, I'm going to have two fractions. Remember, we are adding now because we changed it. So we have the 3, x minus 2, x minus 1. On the top, let's go ahead and distribute this guy. So we have a negative 3x plus 3. For the second guy over here, we're going to have to FOIL this. So we have a negative x squared, a plus x. On the bottom, we have a negative 3x and a plus 3. All right, we're adding, so we can just combine all our like terms. We're putting this whole thing together now. All right, one long fraction. We want the same denominator. And we're ready to put it all together. So if I think about this guy, I'm going to put all my thirds together. I don't have anything to the third power, so I go to squareds. All my x squareds together, so negative x squared. All my x's together, so negative 3 plus 1 is a negative 2, minus 3 is a negative 5. Sorry about that. And then all of my constants together. So 3 plus 3 should give us 6. All right. We are looking to simplify this. In the top part, I can factor it out, okay? So if and this is kind of an additional step, we could have done it from the beginning, we didn't, and that might be my bad. But you actually can cancel some of this out, just like we talked about when simplifying. So I'm gonna show you what that would look like. So if this is my answer, this is my piece, look what actually happens. I can factor this top guy by pulling out a -1. Thinking of him like x squared plus 5x minus 6. And there is actually another x minus 1 trapped in there. I could factor this top guy into x plus 6 and then x minus 1. If I think about it that way, then I can simplify this out from the very beginning, or I can do it at the end. But these x minus 1s that are in here are actually going to cancel out right here. That means that my final answer is only going to be -x minus 6 over 3x minus 6. And that's from just putting this part back together. Okay? All right, let me show you how you could have gotten that out from the beginning. And again, that's probably my error for not doing that from the start. Up here, if I had noticed, and if I kind of go to black, if I had noticed from up here that x minus 1 is inside of that, I could have eliminated that from the very beginning. So if you've already written all of these notes down, that's fine. You can stop the video now. If you want to see how I could have simplified it from the beginning, I am going to work this question one more time and erase what's on there to show you an easier way or to show you an alternative way. Okay. All right. So if you are still watching, I'm going to delete all of this. And I'm going to factor everything from the beginning the same way that we did before. So x minus 2, x minus 1. On the top, I could take out that x and do x minus 1 again. Over here for the blue, I would take out that 3 and do an x minus 2 like we had. Now, if you noticed from the beginning then that you had something in common, you could have eliminated these guys from the start. That means that your factors now actually looked like this. -1 on top of just an x minus 2. I liked that we talked about changing that to a plus sign and then making this a -x minus 3 on top. And on the bottom, we had a 3 and an x minus 2. That means that the only real things that I needed to do a least common denominator is just to multiply this guy by a 3 and this guy by a 3, because the pink was already on this side. See how he already has the x minus 2? So I don't have to multiply anything on that one. So if I wanted to do that, I could say, all right, 3 and x minus 2 is my least common denominator. The one on the right isn't changing. He doesn't have anything to multiply by. And the one on the left, I'm just going to end up with a -3. So if I write that out, one least common denominator, one big fraction, 3x minus 6 if I put it back together. Combine all my like terms on the top, I only have x's and no x's this time. So I have -x and a -6. This is the same answer we ended up with, but probably should have been a little bit easier of a method than what we did originally with more numbers. So if you can cancel something from the beginning, please look to do that. I'm sorry that I didn't notice it on that one.